Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Gerard Pratt, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is leading aircraft woman Chantelle Bradford. This evening's Last Post ceremony commemorates the centenary of the Royal Australian Air Force. Military aviation was pioneered during the First World War, with aircraft operated by armies and navies. But the late stages of the war, however, aerial fighting was recognised as a distinct form of warfare. While Great Britain combined the Royal Naval Air Service and the Royal Flying Corps to form the Royal Air Force in 1918, the 4 squadrons of the Australian Flying Corps, or AFC, remained part of the Australian Imperial Force. Following the disbandment of the AFC at the end of 1919, the Australian Air Corps was created on the 1st of January 1920. Then, on the 31st of March 1921, the Australian Flying Corps was separated from the Army to form the Australian Air Force. A few months later, in August, the new Air Force was given the Royal Ascent, becoming the Royal Australian Air Force. Over the past 100 years, the RAF has established a proud record of service encompassing the Second World War, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, as well as more recent involvement in East Timor, the Solomon Islands and the Middle East. Thousands of Australians have served in the RAAF, operating in conjunction with other air forces across the globe. Inevitably, some have fallen. A photograph is displayed today on the western side of the pool of reflection, which lists the names of 3,143 RAAF personnel who have no known grave. Today we pay our respects to the men and women commemorated here on the Roll of Honour and to the survivors who returned home. We're honoured to acknowledge Senator the Honourable Marise Payne, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Minister for Women, Air Vice Marshal Stephen Meredith, Deputy Chief of Air Force, and all other Air Force personnel and dignitaries who are attending this evening's ceremony. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those who are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony from across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. Australia's Federation Guard is the tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catafalque party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. If able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Catapult party, attention! Catapult party, present arms.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, all beauty rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains that let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Catapult party, shoulder up. Catapult party, order up.
If able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection in the following order. Senator the Honourable Maurice Payne, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Minister for Women. Air Vice Marshal Stephen Meredith, Deputy Chief of Air Force. Warrant Officer Air Force Fiona Grasby, Warrant Officer Air Force and Leading Aircraftswoman Madeline Fountain. Air Commodore Andrew Elverson, Director General Air Force, 2021 Branch. Mr. Carl Schiller, National President, Air Force Association, and Mrs. Sharon Bown, National Vice President, Air Force Association.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Sergeant William Bernard Turley Godley. On the 31st of March 1921, the Australian Air Corps was separated from the Army to form the Australian Air Force. A few months later, in the August, the new force received the Royal Ascent, becoming the Royal Australian Air Force that we know today. That same 31st of March 1921, William Bernard Turley Godley was born in Lucknow, northern India, the second child of Bernard and May Godley. His father had served during the First World War with the 1st 4th Battalion of the Queen's Own Royal West Kent Regiment, a territorial unit sent to India. After the war, his unit took part in the 3rd Anglo-Afghan War on India's northwest frontier. Looking for a fresh start, the family left the subcontinent, arriving in Fremantle, Western Australia, aboard the passenger ship Naldera on the 7th of December, 1922. William was just 20 months old. He had 2 sisters, one aged 3 years and the other just 4 months. The Godleys soon moved to Victoria, where they put down roots. They worked their land in Western Victoria near Kilrain, where William attended Melville Forest State School, and by 1935, they had moved to Melbourne. William went to Balmoral State School, then Castleton College in Blackrock, when the family settled in nearby Sandringham. After failing to obtain an intermediate certificate with the University of Melbourne, in 1939, William got a job as a clerk with the Olympic Tyre and Rubber Company. In June, he joined the local militia and was marching part-time with the 46th Battalion. War broke out in September of that year, but being under 18 years of age, William would have to wait. His father, Bernard, who had been working as an insurance agent for AMP, joined the Australian Imperial Force and was sent overseas with the Australian Army Service Corps. With written permission from his mother, William joined the Royal Australian Air Force on the 23rd of June, 1940. After attending initial training school at Bradfield Park in Sydney, he began training as a wireless operator air gunner. This took him to number 1 Wireless Operator Air Gunner School in Ballarat. In early 1941, he attended number 1 Bombing and Air Gunnery School at Evans Head. After 7 months of intensive training, William, now a sergeant, headed overseas. On the 9th of April 1941, William embarked in Sydney and within a month had crossed the Indian Ocean, stepping ashore in Egypt. In June, he was attached to the Royal Air Force and posted to number 211 Squadron, a medium bomber unit equipped with Blenheim bombers. Number 211 was based at Heliopolis in Egypt as a reserve training squadron. There, Godley undertook further training in gunnery, Morse, and wireless transmitting. After a brief stint with number 71 Operational Training Unit, on the 10th of December 1941, William was posted to number 14 Squadron RAF, a combat operational Blenheim squadron. Made up of mostly Australian personnel, number 14 Squadron had been fighting in the skies above Sudan, Egypt, the Western Desert, and Crete. After sojourns to Palestine and Iraq, they returned to Egypt in November of 1941. As William joined the squadron, it was pursuing German and Italian forces, falling back into Western Cyrenaica. In late January 1942, number 14 Squadron was in action again, attacking Rommel's advancing columns as they pushed back the 8th Army. Eventually, both sides settled on the Gazala line, west of Tobruk, as they prepared for the next phase of the campaign. From early February, the squadron was based well inside Egypt, about 50 kilometres east of Mers al-Matra, but maintained forward bases, including one in Bir el-Bahera near Bardia. Fighting in the air continued at a hectic pace, and the Blenheims were highly vulnerable to German fighters when they lacked adequate fighter cover. The aircraft were operational most days, raiding enemy shipping convoys, airfields, and shipping. On the morning of the 17th of March, 1942, 8 aircraft took off from Bir el-Bahera for an anti-shipping patrol looking for an enemy convoy reported to be northeast of Benghazi. As the aircraft attempted to form up, 2 of them collided. The crews of both were killed as the aircraft came plummeting to the ground and burst into flames. Among the dead, William Godley. He was just 20 years old, 14 days short of his 21st birthday. The RAF itself, not yet 21. Godley's remains were recovered and now lay buried alongside those of his comrades at the Tobruk War Cemetery. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my left-hand side, amongst almost 40,000 Australians who served and died serving in the Second World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and of sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant William Bernard Turley Godley, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Catapult party, shoulder up.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Catapult party, present up.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Catapult party in Woodton. Catapult party, quick march.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere, or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you all for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.